Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Paredes, and this is Oscar Chavez. Today, we'll be presenting on a topic of acculturation from Chapter 12. This part of the chapter helps us understand how people acculturate to new cultures and how their identities transfer in the process. Thanks for being here, and let's get started. Okay, Oscar, slide 2. Acculturation is the adaptation to a new culture and acquiring its values, beliefs, and behaviors. Key points. Happens when moving into a new setting for a culture. Involves learning language, norms, and customs. Can be stressful, unconscious, and gradual. Let us define acculturation in intercultural communication. Acculturation is the process of adapting to a new culture and acquiring its values, beliefs, and behaviors. That is, it's what occurs when an individual settles temporarily or permanently into a new foreign culture. That could include immigrants, foreign students, or even people staying for a long time. Acculturation does not just mean learning a new language. Acculturation means adapting to a lifestyle, norms, and perhaps even the way you behave so that you will blend with the community. An example will be someone who is transferring from Korea to America and might need to adapt to more liberal usage of the language or varying classroom styles. It is an interesting fact that acculturation is not always pleasurable. It is stressful or confusing, especially when values are in conflict from different cultures. Few individuals are aware that they are experiencing it until they encounter an event like culture shock or homesickness. Acculturation is not an event process either. Coping depends to a large extent on the person's personality, how different the new culture is, and what kind of support they receive. And now, Oscar.
Thank you, Jessica. When people from different cultures start mixing, whether they choose to or are forced to, it's not just a simple meet and greet. It's a process. And how well it goes, well, that depends on a lot more than just showing up. It matters why these cultures are colliding. Is it because someone moved school, got displaced by war? Is it colonization? The reason tells you a lot about who's calling the shots. And in the middle of all that, there are these underlying questions. Do I try to blend in and do I hold on to who I have always been? And that's what psychologist John Barry was getting at. He laid out a few different paths people might take when they're adjusting to a new culture. First, some folks throw themselves fully into the new culture, new language, new food, new ideology, and that's called assimilation. Think of someone who moves to the US, stops speaking their language, and even changes their name to fit in at work or at school. Then there's integration. Integration is when you don't give anything up. You find a way to live in both worlds, honoring your roots and showing up in the new space. An example of that would be like a second generation teen who speaks Spanish at home with their abuelita, but uses English at school with their friends. Three will be separation. They stick with their home culture, keep their distance, and maybe out of pride, and due to pride and protection. Example of that would be think of someone who lives in a cultural enclave, watches only media from their home country, and avoids interacting with the new culture. Then there's marginalization. That's when someone doesn't feel like they belong anywhere. They're stuck between two worlds, and neither one claims them. Example of that, unfortunately, would be like a refugee kid who feels too foreign at school, but also too Americanized for their traditional family. Lastly, sometimes people create their own little pocket of culture, sometimes something new entirely, and that's called cultural transportation. Now, let's talk about the toll this can all take because all that shifting, all that stretching and adapting can wear you down. We call that acculturative stress. It can show up in your body, your energy, your confidence. Imagine trying to translate your whole self into a new language every day. It's exhausting, right? Things like food, housing, roles in your family, even how you greet someone is a huge stress. But here's the thing, not everyone feels the stress the same way. And if you got support, if you're confident, if you're already bilingual, those things help. If you're isolated, young, or dealing with trauma, it's heavier. Now, we chose to use Dances with Wolves to illustrate acculturation because the film does not just show a character stepping into a new culture. It shows the emotional weight, the awkward transitions, and even the consequences of becoming something new. We will see our protagonist, John Dunbar's journey in the following three scenes, which offer a chance to see acculturation unfold not just as a concept, but as a lived experience. We will show that acculturation does not live in a vacuum, and that the level of acceptance a host culture offers affects the different modes of acculturation it takes on a newcomer. Please be advised that our third scene does show blood in case you may want to look away for the time being. Thank you.
Angelo. Nkacheka. Hewa he hampon hecha. Hewa hiukachon huo. Gente longe equipe elo. La apeo. Toksha o unicha pictelo. Apeo. Apeo. All I do is wait. Ilamayaya. Ilamay. The whole village was eager to take up a collection on my behalf. The generosity of the people was astonishing. Angelo. What conduct? Dalton's your status as a traitor. Should you choose to cooperate, stays up. There's nothing for you to do out here. You willing to cooperate? Well, speak up. Sumani to tanto obochimi yelo. That Sumani to tango obochimi yelo. Itaku napish nielo. Which are ye? Inichi pipish nielo. What con?
Okay. In the first scene, Dunbar and Winnie the Sarah share a moment of camaraderie after a successful buffalo hunt. Uh, what we see is that Winnie in his hair approaches him and asks him for his jacket. In return, he offers Dunbar a decorative Lakota vest. Dunbar responds with the phrase, good trade. This simple verbal exchange paired with the smiles and laughter represents the beginning of integration. Dunbar retains his U.S. Army identity as he's still in his uniform and he's still speaking English. But he enters a symbolic exchange with a member of a previously hostile community. It's important to note that Win in his hair initiates a trade, indicating that the host culture is not receptive. Integration, as defined by the textbook, requires both the willingness of the individual and the openness of the host. The second scene reflects a deeper stage of integration. Win in his hair and Otter tell Dunbar he should marry Stamps with fists. This shows how the tribe not only accepts him, but begins to speak on his behalf as one of their own. One phrase that stands out is in the scene is too much medicine. When Dunbar offers his horse as a wedding gift, Winnie the Sarah and Otter jokingly tell him it's too much medicine. We can infer that it carries cultural meaning. The phrase too much medicine suggests that it's an excess or imbalance, possibly reflecting Dunbar's Western values. While he considers a valuable gift might be seen as excessive by the tribe. This highlights that his cultural beliefs don't entirely fit in his new environment, and the tribe is gently encouraging them to adapt. It shows that their desire to help him embrace their customs by changing his understanding of what is meaningful. Um, he is speaking Lakota now, though he still wears his U.S. Army uniform, which shows he hasn't lost his identity. He's being bicultural, moving through both spaces respectfully. Then, paired with the tribe's willingness to volunteer offerings for John, it also reflects the tribe's collective endorsement of Dunbar's inclusion. And third, uh, the third and final scene shows the soldiers do not recognize him and mistake him for a Lakota warrior. His transformation is complete, not just visually, as he now wears full Lakota attire and speaks their language. When he speaks Lakota to the soldiers, he tells them his newly earned name and tells them they are not worth talking to. It is a symbolic and verbal rejection of his original culture. The U.S. Army calls him a traitor, which reflects what the book refers to as a culture of stress. When a person's cultural transition brings negative consequences from their culture of origin. This scene represents Dunbar's shift from integration to assimilation. The new culture has embraced them. Dunbar doesn't assimilate into the dominant culture like most people. Instead, he joins a marginalized group. His rejection by the U.S. Military highlights the dangers of aligning with the less powerful group. This change isn't just personal for him, it also poses a challenge to the values and authority of his previous community. Thank you, and now back to Jessica.
Thank you, Oscar. What we learned. Acculturation is gradual, emotional, and relational. Dances with the Wolves clip shows how immersion builds cultural understanding. Acculturation builds personal identity across culture. Acculturation doesn't happen from one day to another. This is a process that happens overnight. And it's often an intense and emotional one. It's deeply relation, for example, personal relationships, not casual exposure, shape how a person adapts to a new culture. The clip of Dancing with Wolves is a very powerful example. It shows that extended immersion and true relationship with members of another culture can give a strong foundation for effective culture adoption. The clip shows how he builds trust, participates in their lifestyle, and even begins to take on elements of their identity. This shows us how acculturation is not only behavior, but identify how we define ourselves and how others define us. It overcomes culture boundaries and defines what it means for people to belong, think, and participate. Next slide, Oscar. Discussion questions. Can you give a real life example where integration worked or didn't work? What make it easy or difficult? Have you ever experienced acculturation yourself or observed someone else experiencing it? What did you observe occurring? Citations.
And these are our citations. And thank you, everybody. Okay. Stop the recording.